Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Rebecca Macieira-Kaufmann, and she is the founder of RMK Group and the author of FitCEO. Rebecca, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to be here. Love the title.
Yes, thank you so much, because people that are entrepreneurs want to be influential. And, I would suspect that people that are CEOs want to be fit as well. So I want to dive into what you do and how you do it, but get us started with first your story. What's your background and what has your entrepreneurial journey been like to this point in your career?
Sure. So I'm going to start pretty young, born and raised in San Francisco, California. And my first entrepreneurial endeavor was Rebecca's Little Shop in my bedroom, where I would buy everything that I thought my mother or household members needed and sell it to them. Candles, gum, you name it, pot stickers, pot holders. I made them. I made the pot holders. So I had a lot of fun doing that. By the time I got to high school, I was working multiple roles, jobs in the neighborhood, plus continuing to resell things. So I used to go to stores in the neighborhood when they were on their third or fourth time selling something on sale. And then I would take it to the flea market once they no longer wanted to even have it in their inventory at all, and sell it on the weekend. So I have always had an entrepreneurial side to me. And then in high school, I started a jewelry business and paid part of my way through college selling jewelry at jewelry parties. So did a lot of making jewelry, selling jewelry. So I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit inside me. Go figure how after college and grad school, I knew I loved business, wanted to go into business, and also love all things international. So I have had an illustrious career of living and working in 5 countries and spending 30 years in financial services, starting off as a strategy consultant in London, then moving to be a product manager in a very small bank called First Deposit, then moved 12 years at Wells Fargo, where I was head of small business eventually, and then over 13 years at Wells Fargo, where I loved working with small business owners. And then 12 years at Citi, where I had many roles, president of Citibank, CEO of a subsidiary called Banamex USA, and ending up becoming chair of that board. And then my last 4 years at Citi running an area in wealth management called the International Personal Bank. And after 30 odd years of working in corporate America, I was ready to go back to my entrepreneurial roots and start RMK Group, LLC, and also to write a book. And I wrote FitCEO, Be the Leader of Your Life, with my co-author, Lillian So.
Wow. So you've got quite the storied past, and it makes me think if you went from corporate America to starting your own business, and then at some point into your entrepreneurial journey thought, let me co-write or write this project book called FitCEO, you probably had to notice that there's some CEOs and business owners that you were working with and maybe surrounding yourself with that weren't fit. And you notice that when you're fit and improving yourself physically, maybe then that carries over into your business life. So what were some of the precursors to you thinking, this is a book that needs to be written and I need to be part of it?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I did a lot of speaking in my career, and often to internal teams, large teams, and also externally. And I noticed that people would stand in line after I spoke at either an external event or an internal event. And I'd look around and who are they standing in line for? They were standing in line to ask me questions. And I really started to note the questions. And the questions were often around these themes of life balance. Mm-hmm. How do you do it all? How do you run a business and have a family? How do you stay physically fit? And so I just would ask I'm in a lot of professional networks. I'd ask my other CEO friends or just business owner friends, do people stand in line after you speak?
Is this a normal thing? Or?
And most of them said, no, you ought to write a book. And so people started planting the idea, because I would tell them all the questions I was being asked. And so I started taking a notebook of all the questions I got asked every time over all the years. And I'd say over my summers or vacations, I would jot my notes down on a beach when my mind was clear and I was watching the kids play in the water or something. And I really wrote this book over many, many years in bits and pieces. And then about 10, 12 years ago, 2013. So yeah, 10 years ago, I actually became a CEO of a subsidiary bank of Citibank or Citigroup. And that whole experience of I was commuting to do that job. So I was on airplanes literally every week, staying in hotels every night, trying to be healthy, not knowing really the food I was eating, like where they bought it, was it organic or not organic, or I don't know. I didn't know anything, So lots of challenges of how do you stay fit when you're living in hotels and traveling, and how do you stay mentally, fit as well, and spiritually fit and emotionally fit. So the book is really about all the kinds of fitness as a leader, so that as I was taking care not only of these teams of lots of people, I had to take care of myself. So this getting on an airplane every single time of them saying, remember, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help others, became such a mantra of mine. And it is such a helpful mantra, really. So the book evolved over the years. When I became CEO of the bank subsidiary, I couldn't figure out how I was going to work out. And so I did ask my club in San Francisco, hey, is there someone who would work with me half an hour every once in a while just to give me a fitness training that I could do in 20 minutes? And that's how I met Lillian So, my co-author. She was the only person willing to do something for half an hour. Most people want an hour client. And I only wanted to meet twice a month for half an hour. And we mind melded over time. And I told her about this book maybe a year later. And I said, hey, I'd love your voice in the book and your expertise in the book, given I've got the leadership expertise and but she has all the expertise in the actual fitness side. And so she said, yes. I said, great, I'll call you. And whenever I'm not in corporate America, I want to write the book. So I called her up in 2020 and I said, I'm ready. Are you? And she said, yes. And we did it.
Neat. Well, I love how you say being fit is more than just fitness physically, because it really does tie into financially, spiritually, corporate, professionally, all of those things, because it's that holistic approach. And I know for me, a lot of times people feel like if you're a CEO or high level corporate C-suite executive, you're like, I just don't have the time. And what I found was, many times we have to gamify things and go, oh, as soon as you do this, then you're going to get that. And you set things up for yourself. So for me, I always felt like, okay, before I got married 26 years ago, I was a gym rat, lived in the gym. But after I got married, had kids, then it became so much easier to not. And so I found myself going, well, why don't I exercise more often? And I was like, well, I'm just driving and grinding and growing the business. And so I found for me, it was like, okay, how can I do both? So what I discovered, and this is leading up to the question of what are some little tricks and hacks that you have found that would help people implement the fitness. I found, okay, if I need to be increase my workout and cardio, I'm going to find really powerful business programs that I'm going to watch videos on or listen to while I am working out. So now it's like, okay, I'm not wasting time, so to speak. In my mind, I was like, oh, I'm away from the business. Well, now I'm learning and bettering myself while I'm doing this treadmill run or while I'm working out on the gym equipment. So what are some other things that you have found that work for these busy executives so that they feel compelled to stay fit?
Yeah, no, great question, Mike. I really love the word hacks. I actually described to my son, who's 25, that the book is literally, or he described it to me actually, that the book is actually my life's hacks of running all these businesses. And so one of the hacks to your question is I did walking meetings. I did a lot of walking interviews, walking meetings. A lot of meetings are by phone sometimes. And so I just walk around the building on the phone or outside if it was confidential. Most things were. So I was often outside walking. So it did a couple things. It got me fresh air, got me sunshine. I was commuting to LA, so there was a lot of sunshine. And I used to bring tennis shoes to the office or brought flat shoes to the office so I could do walking meetings. I also did walking interviews. And so it'd be really reduce the stress for the interviewee, not to have to sit across a table from me, and look at me in the eyes. And
so it'd be like, let's take a walk.
Yeah. So I'd already read the resume. And so I have some really interesting stories from folks who went through those interviews with me that said, wow, they felt that they learned the most about me and me about them, given they weren't sort of stuck to this piece of paper in this intimidating eyeball to eyeball interview. So those are
Yes.
just a few hacks. I have many of them, like, get out of your car 2 blocks before the restaurant. If you're meeting someone for a business dinner, walk 2 blocks, clear your brain, go into dinner mode. Because I often did a lot of dinners with staff as motivational dinners to get to know them. And if I'm walking in with my mind preoccupied with the latest regulatory issue or the last phone call I had or the finance director's, last topic, I might not be so present for the team dinner. So a lot of things just to add in movement.
And also, like you mentioned, doesn't each one of these levels of fitness layer upon the other? So for instance, when you are increasing your physical fitness, that elevates different chemicals in your body and your brain so that you feel mentally better. And then when you are bettering yourself physically, then you're like, ooh, well, in addition to how I feel from the exercise, maybe I should whatever, like read more books or attend more, seminars so that I'm mentally sharp. So what are some of those things that you find that become like, 1 + 1 = 9?
Oh, absolutely. Well, so in the book, some of the things I talk about in part 1 called commitment, and in there, chapter 2 is about setting aside the time, and chapter 3 is about making it a routine. Very basic hygiene, but they're almost like the highway upon which you can run with the book. And buddy up, right? You talked about gamifying. And so, for instance, I have a friend who also started her own business, and we walk once a week. And so we talk about some of the things she's doing to start her business, or I when I was starting mine. And it is very fulfilling for being in the same phase of starting a business, but also we were walking for an hour. And again, it's not just the exercise of walking, the mental and spiritual, emotional health that comes from we walk where there's trees, where we can see water. All of that is so important for your total well-being.
Yes. Huge. And we could probably go on for hours upon talking about how this one, amplifies to this one, which then amplifies to that one. And all of a sudden you get to the point where it's like, okay, now I can do this CEO thing or this C-suite thing a lot better, or running my business a lot better. And it doesn't take a lot of time. I was literally talking to my son who's away at college today, and he was going, oh, hey, I got a part in the play, and now I'm going to have to, adjust my workout and study habits to make sure I fit that in. And we were talking about high intensity training, and it's like you can still get an effective workout shorter period of time for these periods. So I think you've got to realize what it's going to do for you so that it draws you to it, so that you're not pushed. Because if you feel pushed, it's easy to go, forget about it. But if you feel that draw, like, ooh, I must do these things so that, and it's some compelling future, now that makes it easier to make steps toward that goal.
Yep. So important. And I'll tell you, one of the things I've loved about thinking about your college son is that my children, 23 and 25, when I wrote the book, were 21 and 23, saying that their friends love it because it gives them insight, especially the section of the book on boundary setting, when you're living your life on Zoom and trying to set up new work routines in an environment that has no boundaries. So lots of amplification and leveraging possibilities with the sections of the book.
100%. So tell us about RMK Group. What is your business all about? And you launched that to work with entrepreneurs, and how do you serve them?
Sure. Well, RMK Group is really taking all of the experience I've had over the years and helping other companies and leaders exceed their potential and thrive. So what have I learned through my career that enables one to exceed potential and thrive? And so I try to provide insight, action, and results. And I take a 4-prong approach, Mike. I really try to talk the CEO or the founding team, if you will. And sometimes they've been around for a while. So sometimes it's also established businesses about what does it take to have operational excellence? What does it take to be client-centric? How can you really engage your employees and then get that shareholder return if you have shareholders, or investor return if you have investors, or return for yourself if you're solo? And I think one of the things I do that's unique is I really bring an operator's mindset and my experience to bear. Whereas what I have found is sometimes it's different than the traditional coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've been there, done that, been in the trenches, and it's like, ooh, here's what I've noticed in my career. Here's how you can implement that. And one thing you said that stood out to me, which I always love word play. So you said you work with people to help them exceed their potential. Not normally you think of, oh, I'll help you achieve your potential. And you talk about exceeding it. So talk a little bit about the difference between achieving and exceeding.
Sure. I mean, one of the things that's been the greatest gift to me in all my years of work is the feedback that comes both ways. So I do and have done. I've managed teams of 5,000, 1,000, hundreds, whatever. But with my directs, I've always done and been very committed to the one-on-one and the coaching and the helping them be the best they can be and remove barriers for them. But when each time I've left a role or when they give me the feedback, I always say any feedback from me, they'll say, wow, you enable me to far exceed what I ever thought I could achieve. And so I've sort of poked around with that with people, like, what is it? And they say, well, you hold a really high bar. You set the expectation higher than I would have for myself.
It's like the old saying, if you shoot for the moon, you'll hit a star. And, if you shoot for exceeding and you missed it by a little bit, at least you're going to achieve. And I think it does help us to expand our potential. And many times it is just, getting, into a bigger environment and seeing that other people have done what you didn't think could be done. And so mindset really plays a lot of that, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the optional titles for the book. It still may be my second book about mind over matter, or mindset is everything. I think the other analogy, Mike, is really, when you play a sport with someone who's better than you play better.
Yes.
Right. It's the same idea. So if you get an advisor, which is what I call myself, who has done things, I'm not better than the person, but you know what I mean? I have the experience or I've done it before. They're better than you, like in a sport, right? They've played golf 10 years or tennis 10 years or basketball 10 years, and you've played 2. Yeah. You learn 10x more and you exceed your potential in that moment because you're driving to match them and their 10 years versus your 2. And that's what I think helps someone run faster.
And realizing that you never, ever make it and achieve everything and throw in the gloves, you're done. It's like Tony Robbins talks about KANAI, constant and never-ending improvement. So you always got to improve this. And then, now that I'm getting to this level, let me now focus over to this section of my personal, professional life. So I think it is that constant process. So I really like your approach. This has been such a really neat talk, Rebecca. If someone is interested in connecting with you, reading your book, and learning about how you can help them to exceed their goals, not just achieve them, what's the best way they can reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, wonderful. So I have the website, rmkgroupllc.com, and that is a great way to connect with me. And then there's also the book website, FitCEObook.com, and both are ways to connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Great speaking with you. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.